We've got a very exciting, massively busy agenda, but the general election is definitely something we thought it would be well worth sharing today, to give you a sense of where we are and where we think some of the issues are, and where we need more pressure, where we want, colleagues right across the country raising with local MPs and things, the issues. So, we're going to start today with our sort of open discussion. I'm going to ask Phil, who was, I didn't meet actually, but I did hear at our Christmas Carol service, who's going to just give us an idea of how he became homeless, what it felt like, and actually how shelter was involved and how we made a difference. You see what I mean? So, Phil, over to you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll stand up for So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a huge thank you to Shelter for inviting me along to this event. And as a Derbyshire lad, it's always a real treat to come to the city. So if I can expand a little bit on a few minutes sharing my stories, how homelessness really can touch a wide cross-section of society, not just the stereotypes, and also the dramatic and positive effect that shelter had on my life. So, I was married for quite a long time. I had a solid 30-year career in aerospace technology. I was responsible for overseas business development, so an awful lot of travelling involved. But I hit a crossroads around 8 years ago. Both my parents were unfortunately terminally ill. Dad had Alzheimer's, Mum had cancer, and I didn't have any siblings to help me with their care. But I also had a son that required 4 heart operations. Unfortunately, my wife at the time couldn't drive through medical reasons, so the pressure was really on. I was also getting a lot of pressure from work. They'd be saying, shouldn't Phil be in Tokyo this week? And in actual fact, I was busy plate spinning, either at Birmingham Children's Hospital or running between care homes. So unfortunately, a 30-year career came to a crashing end. That really came to a head when my wife turned around and asked me for a divorce. So at that point, I was pretty burned out. I felt I needed to get off the corporate rat race, and I'd always been interested in filming and photography. So I retrained in that, and I found a bit of a niche, putting together people's life stories. So I would scan their old photos in, produce a video set to music, and then display that at events. And it worked okay, but it always bumped along. It never really took off. And I was becoming more and more reliant on dipping into my pension. There was another string of events, which unfortunately led to me being assaulted by my landlord. And that was the initial trigger to my homelessness. It really wasn't safe to return home. And through no fault of my own, I moved into a small hotel in Harwich, thinking that that would be a temporary stopgap. But by this time, my mental health had really taken quite a battering, and with stress-related issues such as a clear diagnosis of PTSD. Funds were ebbing away, and I was desperately trying to prop up my business, working on new websites and marketing. And then threaded throughout all of this, of course, COVID kicked in, and that was the final nail in the coffin. So approaching Christmas of 21, as a last-ditch money-saving ploy, I felt I had no alternative but to move into my car. So Starbucks became a regular haunt. I'd buy an extremely expensive cup of coffee, but it would last me 7 hours. I would use their disabled glues to keep a reasonable standard of hygiene, but I was very, very low at that point. In actual fact, I was suicidal. And I really saw my funds ebbing away as a countdown to jumping off the All-Road Bridge. And to make matters worse, my storage company decided to lock me out because I owed them some money, and I had all my winter clothes and bedding locked in there. So I was desperately wrapping clothes around me, trying to keep warm, putting the car heater on, watching the fuel gauge get lower and lower and lower, and finally the heater piped up. I've always enjoyed cooking and reasonably wholesome food, but I was living on cold microwave meals, and as a special treat, every now and again I would have a Big Mac from McDonald's. I can tell you I've not been back to McDonald's for 2 years now. But I was really at a crisis point. I recall going into Sainsbury's at Christmas and using their loo. I'd been bombarded with Christmas music, the sight of happy families putting away their Christmas shopping in the car, and very often I'd come out there really in tears. It was an awful time. So I contacted the Samaritans, and they were a good ear, but there was no real tangible help from them. And it was at that point I turned to shelter. And things from there on in completely changed for the better. Jenny was unhurried. I was upset for some of the call, and she listened to my story and helped me put together an action plan. Help with day-to-day requirements, people to contact, where to get hot food, where to get my washing done, the benefits and entitlements that I was entitled to. Going on the dole was completely alien to me. I had no idea. And I've been paying my taxes for decades. Jenny empowered me to get that help that I needed. There was traction, there was momentum. I made contact with the benefits office, with the housing people, and they'd call me back. The system was actually working. At that time I went into a temporary shelter, and boy, that was no frills. Not the usual sort of people that I would associate with, but they were fine, and I bonded with quite a few people. As I mentioned, I like cooking, and on a Saturday night I used to make curry for 12 people. I was a family between houses, and little Emma, the daughter, she would help me cut and chop all the spices, and it was a good atmosphere. It was really good. So today I'm in a comfortable apartment. It's safe and warm. More importantly, I have a clear headspace to be creative again. I'm studying microelectronics and software coding. I've just bought a 3D printer, so in the morning I can sit with coffee and design some crazy invention, and come the evening I have some wacky prototype coming off the 3D printer. It's great fun. On a bit of a health journey at the minute. I've got one new knee and I've got another one to go. But it is my intention in time to start my own business again. So watch this space, Dragon's Den. So I'm now in a great place, both mentally and physically. I've joined a cycling club. I've got a super quality circle of new friends. And that's led to several other volunteering activities. Just come back from Cornwall visiting my son, who successfully got through all his heart operations. He's 21 and 6'3" now, towering over me. And it was a lovely holiday, lovely seeing him. He's studying down there at the moment, so life is good. But without exaggeration, the intervention from shelter saved my life. And I really feel like I've had a reboot thanks to their help. So it's still Cunliffe, version 2.0, onwards and upwards. Thank you.